Welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's worship. I'm Carrie Rasco, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I serve on the board. If you are new to us, welcome, and we'd love to be able to reach out to you. You'll find a QR code on the back of the order of service for our welcome form. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. Each month, Allen Avenue supports a nonprofit organization whose mission and work aligns with our Unitarian Universalist principles. The Share the Plate organization for November is Project FEED, Food Emergency Exchange Depot, which is an emergency food pantry located in Portland. It was founded in 1975 by a group of clergy and lay people concerned with the growing number of Portland residents who were without a reliable source of food in emergencies. Project FEED provides food and household supplies to take home for individuals and families in crisis across Cumberland County. In November, A2U2 Social Justice Committee and Racial Justice Team are offering several opportunities, including co-sponsoring a Wabanaki Reach workshop on Zoom, December 13th, and a common read using Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be Anti-Racist. For more information about these programs, you can look in our weekly e-blast. We're so glad you've joined us today.
Our call to worship words this morning are those of Andrew C. Kennedy. We come to love a church, the traditions, the history, and especially the people associated with it. And through these people, young and old, known and unknown, we reach out, both backward into history and forward into the future, to link together the generations in this imperfect but blessed community of memory and hope.
Thank you, choir. That was beautiful. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from Amy Carol Webb. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. Our time for all ages this morning is the Winds of Change. We're having Laura Burden come up and read for us, and Rev Donna and I will be illustrating that. We will try our best.
Good morning. The winds of change. You never know what the wind will blow or which way the wind blows. The wind can change directions and maybe change your life. It happened to John Murray. As a young man, John Murray had excellent fortune blow his way. He had a fine education, a steady job, a loving wife, and a young son. Life was good. Then suddenly everything changed. John Murray's wife and their son became sick and died. John lost his job, lost all his money, and was put in jail because he could not pay his bills. John was a very religious man, a Universalist who had even preached about a loving God. Now he wasn't sure what he believed. He felt his life was over. Friends urged him to go someplace where he could start again. He sailed for America on a ship named the Hand in Hand. The wind blew the ship toward their destination, New York. But then fog rolled in and the ship ran aground in New Jersey instead. John and a few others volunteered to leave the ship, go on land, and get directions and supplies. As he was walking ashore, John saw a farmhouse with a small chapel or church beside it. It belonged to Thomas Potter. Thomas Potter greeted John, gave him food, and for everyone on the ship also, and invited John to come back and have dinner with him that night. When John came back, Thomas Potter showed him the chapel. Thomas Potter said that he believed in a loving God who wanted to accept all people into heaven. John said he believed the same thing. Thomas Potter told John that he had built the chapel and was waiting for God to send him a minister. You, John, are that minister. I've waited for you for a long time. John did not want to hear this. He was not a preacher anymore, and he was determined never to preach again. Yet, Thomas Potter seemed confident that John was a Universalist preacher he had waited for, and he asked John to preach on Sunday. I can't preach on Sunday, said John, because as soon as the wind changes, my boat will set sail, and I must be on it. If the boat has not sailed by Sunday, would you preach? Asked Thomas Potter. If I'm still here on Sunday, I'll preach, said John Murray. Now, what do you think happened? Did the wind blow? Did the Hand in Hand sail away, taking John Murray with it? No wind blew. No ship sailed. John Murray preached on Sunday morning, September 30th, 1770, in the chapel Thomas Potter built for him many years before. The Universalist message of the power of love was that the power of love was good news to many who heard it. It was good news for John. The winds of change blew yet again for John Murray, and he now wanted to preach more than anything that he did. And for many years, he helped found Universalism in America. He's one of our ancestors and our faith home, and we, as Unitarian Universalists, owe a special thanks to Thomas Potter. It was his hospitality that brought John Murray back to the pulpit. And we owe a special thanks to the winds that blew him in and would not blow him out. And a special thanks to our interactive drawers over here, who did a very nice job.
I invite you now into the spirit of prayer or meditation with these words of A2U minister Ariel Aronson Eves. I want to pray for justice, but how can I? In a world where the same courts that let a white boy walk would sentence a black boy to life in prison or even death. I want to pray for peace, but how can I? In a world where the ideal of peace is sometimes used to silence healthy conflict and necessary grieving. I want to pray for love, but how can I in a world where such a feeling is sometimes used to justify abuse? Instead, I pray for patience, that I might be present with all that I am feeling in this moment, without trying to rush through it. I pray for tenderness, that I might be gentle with myself and others. I pray for courage that I might seek and speak truth, patience, tenderness, courage. For these things, I pray. I invite you now into a moment of silence. Watching the choir go back to their seats reminds me of when people have clustered up in the waiting room on Zoom and somebody lets them all in at once. Our reading this morning is going to be Extremist of Justice. From Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? Written by Martin Luther King Jr. The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence, you may murder the liar, but you cannot murder the lie, nor establish truth. Through violence, you murder the hater, but you do not murder hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. The question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists will we be? Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? This community's vision and mission is one that works toward justice. The community is a cooperative, if you will, of people who share their time and their talents to support the work, to support spiritual enrichment opportunities, religious education for children, and other programming. We are a self-supporting organization, freely gathered because we believe in Unitarian Universalism and all it can do in the world. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. at the edge of the New Jersey shore is a place where John Murray found himself, stuck in the winds of change. On that September day, 1770, 251 years ago, his boat hit the shore. John traveled from England to the U.S. after the death of his one-year-old child, his wife, and time in prison because he couldn't pay his debts. At the age of 29, he experienced more tragedy than any one life should have to bear. John, a Universalist preacher, longed for a break, a rest, and had no intention of preaching again, as Laura told us, with not much else to do but wait for the winds to change. He went ashore, traveling through the woods in search of food. After a bit of a hike, he did run into Thomas Potter's house. And Potter was generous and also determined. The Potters were Baptist and Quaker and believed in universal salvation. Thomas Potter built this meeting house we so clearly can see from the drawings, and waited and waited. Murray relays Potter's story in his own journal, and I quote, "When the meeting house was finished, I, Potter, received an application from the Baptists, and I told them if they could make it appear that God Almighty was a Baptist, the building should be theirs at once. The Quakers and the Presbyterians received a similar answer from Potter. No, said Potter, as I firmly believe that all are equally dear to Almighty God, they shall be equally welcome to preach in this house which I have built. Potter waited and waited for a preacher of hope. And finally, John Murray did arrive at the door. And as the story's been told in John Murray's life record, Potter urged and urged him to preach and bargained with him that if the winds changed, certainly he could get back on that boat, and you can see it moving over to the corner of some other place. But it didn't change, and he was stuck at the shore. And he took it as a sign from God that he would preach in this chapel that Potter had built. He preached a message of universal salvation, becoming one of the founders of universalism in the United States. The Reverend Mark Harris describes that Murray's message of universal salvation of all brought a new optimism to America. They were echoed in his words, not hell, but hope and courage. It's kind of an amazing story. John Murray's journey was literally suspended in time, in a liminal space. He had longed for his sloop to free up and find its way back to the water so he could journey on and continue exactly as he had planned his life. But it didn't happen that way. During the wait, John prayed for discernment. For some of us, it might be prayer. For those of us now, it also might be meditation, might be journaling, it might be breathing. But for John, it was prayer. And he felt moved by the Spirit and shed tears in this place of a new beginning. In the New England woods, he found a time of deep discernment and strength within himself. As he waited in this liminal space, the direction of his life changed drastically, and in turn changed the lives of so many others as his Universalist ministry continued on for years to come. Much like John Murray's boat, this congregation is experiencing the winds of change, leading us to the bay to wait. At this time in the life of Allen Avenue UU Church, when we no longer can live out our previously planned program, there is fertile ground. There is fertile ground beyond returning to seats that are close together, a room that is filled to the brim, and a room that everybody gets to sing in. That was our plan. But it's not the plan we return to. Our creativity, our persistence, our discernment, and our community are some of the ways that moved us forward. Now we have an opportunity to continue to listen to what calls us, what troubles us and engages our vision, our creativity, and our dreams. This experience naturally sits kind of in the center of our hearts. Some of us have been in this bay before at different times in our lives. Perhaps a job change, a relationship has ended, a loved one has died. Perhaps we witness injustice that moves us to rage. We meet at the shores, waiting and discerning our way forward, sometimes alone and sometimes in community. In this particular bay, the lived expression of our Unitarian Universalist faith can help us in our day-to-day relationships. It can frame how we approach one another, how we think about our relationships and our ultimate goal in those relationships. As we consider how we communicate, the choices we make in those relationships, how we share what our spiritual needs and lives entail. And our faith can inspire us to take action. Our universalism embodies the understanding that a legal system is different than a system of justice. As a community, we can experience the power in righteous anger. As Gandhi says, I have learned through bitter experience the one supreme lesson to conserve my anger. And as a heat conserved is transmuted into energy, even so our anger controlled can be transmuted into a power which can move the world. At this time when we witness the world's injustice unfolding, how will we work together so the winds of change move us to action, move us to live more justly in our one-to-one relationships and conversations, in our choices we make every time we start a new day, and in our communities? Not hell, but hope and courage. Murray's words are not an invitation to live in some place of denial, but calls us to keep our dreams alive by working toward a community and nation that is not fueled by violence. May our holy rage land us at the shore of a faith that lives its belief in justice, accountability, and equity. May our Universalist history inspire us to understand that we have landed on the shore of injustice and call us to live our faith in the world.